All right, so it is Lenten season. That's the 40 days plus Sundays before Easter. And this all started last Wednesday or the Wednesday before. Anyway, whenever this video comes out. But we're already in the midst of Lent, and I thought it would be nice to share with you what our family is doing and also share with you a little bit more about my liturgical calendar guide for Protestant families, as well as the brand new Celebrating the Church Year online guide that takes that guide one step further and gives you everything you need in an online platform that is continuously updated and will just be growing and growing. So let's dive into it. For those of you who are new to the channel, I'm Amy from raisingarrows.net. That's where my blog is, and this is an offshoot of that blog. So a lot of the information that I share here is actually there as well, and also on my podcast. I would love to have you subscribe here to my channel so that you get all of the video updates. But today we're going to be talking specifically about Lent and what our family is doing for Lent this year, as well as how we are trying to make the rest of our year very Christ-centered by following a more liturgical calendar. Now, most of you probably associate the liturgical calendar with what some people call high church or the Catholic Church. And that would be true to an extent. As Protestantism progressed into more of an evangelical church, then they tended to kind of get rid of anything that smacked of Catholicism. You'll still see some of these traditions in the Lutheran churches, Presbyterian churches, Methodist churches, but anything below that tier of, again, what a lot of people would call high church, they are not nearly as attached to a calendar year, a church year, colors that go along with it, traditions that go along with it. They kind of threw that off because they felt that it smacked too much of man's traditions. However, as I have begun to dig into this deeper and deeper, I do not feel that way. I was raised in a Methodist church, but the only thing I really knew about the liturgical year was simply that we changed colors on the altar. I really don't remember there being anything else except maybe Holy Week. There were a lot of activities during Holy Week. So I wasn't really steeped in that culture like maybe some of our Catholic brothers and sisters would be. And when I got older, we didn't go to a Methodist church anymore. I went to more non-denominational, maybe more Baptist leaning particularly. I'm not real sure about that though. It was just more non-denominational. We tend to identify more with churches that do not have a specific denomination to them. That's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. But anyway, those churches tend to not follow the church calendar at all. They tend to not care one hoot about anything except maybe Easter, Christmas, obviously, maybe some Holy Week, but really other than that, a lot of the churches that we attended were, expository. So you were going through a book of the Bible and there were only special services that were outside of that book for Christmas and Easter. And there was never any talk of anything else that had to do with these traditions that maybe had been handed down. But like I said, I began to dig into this even deeper because of a few different catalysts. One of those was that I had been studying the biblical feasts, and I saw where throughout the Bible, there were these festivals and feasts that the Lord had ordained and how they always pointed to Christ, as everything in the Bible points to Christ. That was also something I did not grow up realizing. So I digress, but I was digging into the biblical feasts, and then I happened to run across a book that was part of a blogging thing that I was doing, and she was Catholic and she was talking about all of these traditions, and it was very interesting to me, and some of them resonated with me from when I was a little kid. And I started to dig a little bit more there. I was kind of just researching online, didn't get too deep into it, but felt like I was just scratching the surface, and I kind of let that lie for a while. Then I became very interested in making Lent, the season leading up to Easter, just as important as we were making Advent. Advent had been an incredible part of my childhood, and then also something that I had wanted to share with my kids. And year after year, we had just added to it and made it more and more meaningful. And I wanted to do that with Lent. I felt like of all the holidays for a Christian, Easter ought to be the most important because that's what our faith is based on. So, in my quest to make Easter more important, Lent leading up to it made sense. And one of the resources that I used for that was Stories of the Resurrection from Proverbial Homemaker. Tana's a personal friend of mine. It is a fantastic product. It goes through the stories of, I think, 20 of the people who are mentioned in the life of Christ, particularly in that last week of Christ's life. And she goes through them in depth. There are other things, there's hymn studies and there's printables and all kinds of things that go with it. You can use as much of it or as little of it as you want. It's really kind of an open and go, do what you want to do with it. And so we were using that, and we still continue to use that year after year for Lent. But then we happened to attend a First Communion for a friend of ours. My husband is actually her godfather. And in the Catholic Church, as long as one of the godparents is Catholic, it is okay for the other one to not be. So my husband is very good friends with this man and his wife and his family. And so his youngest daughter is my husband's goddaughter. And so we attended her First Communion. And while we don't totally agree with the way that the Catholic Church does things, we do feel like it's important that we speak Christ into this little girl's life. And so we attended, and while we were there, we were noticing things around the church, different colors, different things that we had not seen before. And so just out of curiosity, we started asking questions. And her dad was very knowledgeable, and he explained, this is the way it is right now. We have this and this and this and this season. And he kind of explained that. And it really piqued my interest. And I thought, I am going to just check this out, see what I can find. And I began digging. And over this past summer, I took a whole bunch of books with me out to our mountain cabin. We were going to be there for a couple of weeks, and I dug and I dug and I dug and I took notes. I mean, extensive notes. And I began putting together what I felt like would be a Protestant version of this church year calendar, because there's a lot of extra things that aren't things that we as Protestants necessarily believe. They aren't in scripture, and I don't want to add those things. So I was taking a Protestant approach of sola scriptura with that information and putting it all together, compiling it for our family. And as I was doing this, this was a huge labor of love. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I should really share this on the blog. Like, this is really, really incredible and such a passionate thing for me to be putting together. It was causing me to dig so deep spiritually, so deep into scripture, and I wanted to share this with everybody. And so what I ended up doing was deciding to put it on the blog. I released that part of it right before Advent, this PDF download of this liturgical calendar for Protestant families. It has a calendar wheel that I put together. It has the download with all these links and all these ideas. And as I was doing this, I realized, wait, I want to be able to update this thing continually. I want to be able to share when I come up with something else that I'm like, oh, we need to do this too, or here's a really great idea, or I dig deeper and I have more understanding of something. I wanted to be able to do that, but I knew I could not continually update this PDF. It was just going to be too much. But I have this online platform on Teachable, and I thought, that would be perfect. So I put the whole thing over there, and I am continually working on it, updating it. And I have to be honest with you, I am so excited about it, and I am already using it myself. When I use my own products day in and day out, then it is something that I definitely think you guys would want to use as well. So this is the Celebrating the Church Year online guide that I'm talking about. And it just goes from Advent all the way through to Lent, to ordinary time, to special days to celebrate within all of these. It also has a section for Sundays where I talk about my journey through realizing how Sundays should be celebrated. Not that they are a set of rules, but that Jesus is our Sabbath rest and how freeing that is. And honestly, some of you are going to look at this and think, well, here's all these rules. You're telling me I've got to give up something for Lent and I've got to make Advent this certain way. No, that's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is that in studying these things, you begin to realize this depth and meaning that you never saw before. And it ends up centering your entire calendar around Christ. And I cannot express how amazing that has been in our own family, and that I wanted to give that gift to you. So if you are interested in either one of those products, you can go down to the description and you will see the Liturgical Calendar Guide for Protestant Families, which is a PDF download. And you will also see the Celebrating the Church Year online guide. That is the one that will be continually updated. Now, when you go into the church guide online initially, you will find that it is not complete at this point. It is complete to where we are right now. And that's because we're in the first year of this guide. So it's actually going to be at a special sale price because it's in its first year and it's not complete. It's not in its entirety yet. However, come Advent of this year, it will go up to its full price and it will no longer be that sale price. And that's just because it will be complete, other than continual updates and anything that I find that I'm digging deeper into. I actually have been blessed to have readers and listeners and viewers who have sent me information that I have actually found very helpful to add into that product. I have a playlist that a friend sent me for Advent, and there have just been a lot of other little nuggets that I have been able to add into this online guide. So that's my explanation for how all of this got started. Now, like I said, originally we were using Stories of the Resurrection, and that was kind of it. I didn't have anything else that I was doing for Lent particularly. We weren't even really doing any sort of giving up anything. I think one year, like maybe last year, we did a giving jar, and the kids would put money in it and then it would go to the poor. I think we sent it to some sort of mission locally. And I think that's probably what we'll do this year as well. So we have a jar where we put money into it, and that's one of the focuses of Lent: more prayer, more giving, more fasting. Now, as a fast, what we are fasting from is sugar. This works really well because you have come off of a season of lots and lots of sugar. Or maybe that's just our family, but we've come off this season of lots of sugar. It is time to let that go. We got rid of all the candy. And on Ash Wednesday, which was also Valentine's Day, by the way, we did go ahead and celebrate Valentine's Day. And then that night, we celebrated Ash Wednesday with a campfire. And all that day, we carried in our pockets confessions, things that were maybe kind of weighing us down, or things that we even felt like from the past we had not really let go of. And we put those in our pockets. And I gotta tell you, like, having that in my pocket all day long was very weighty. And that night, I read from Psalm, and then we threw them into the campfire. And it was so nice to just get rid of those and to realize that they are ashes, and that it is time to focus our hearts on the Lord and to find in Lent a season of redemption and reflection. And even though this is our wilderness season, this is the time where we're just waiting expectantly for Easter, that we can feel that closeness to the Lord. So we're fasting from sugar, and then all of us kind of chose something that would feel very difficult for us to give up, and something that would feel really awesome when we got it back. So some of the kids chose to give up their afternoon snack. I chose to give up coffee. And I'm not sure what some of the other kids gave up. I know one of the kids gave up taking a turn to choose a show in the afternoon. And yeah, that's all I remember at this point of what kids were giving up. Okay, ta-da, there's light. So when I started this, it was light outside, but the sun is quickly setting. So I thought we better turn the lights on in here. So my kids are giving up things, I'm giving up things, but the really cool part about this is that on Sunday, you get to celebrate, because even though we're in the middle of Lent, now remember, Lent is the 40 days minus Sundays before Easter. The reason they're minus Sundays is because Sunday is a day of celebration. Sunday is the Lord's Day. Sunday is the day that Jesus rose from the dead. Sunday is a miniature Easter. Every single week, we get to celebrate. All throughout the year, we get to celebrate. Sunday should be the most exciting day for your children. And I'm going to digress for a second here. I have a podcast where I talk about changing how we see Sundays. In fact, I think it was just the last podcast that was published here on YouTube. And in that, I talk about my journey and how Sunday was always kind of a not great day. And it was because I felt very burdened by what I thought Sunday needed to be, and it would never happen. And I felt like I wasn't getting this rest that I was supposed to get. And I also saw where my kids didn't really like Sunday either. And part of that was because I was stressed. Part of that was because I had these expectations of them that had come from times past. I will be honest with you, when you read about the way that the Puritans and even the early settlers here in this country handled Sundays, it's very dreary. It's very somber. It is not celebratory in any way, shape, or form. We've been reading through the Little House on the Prairie books, and Sunday was not a great day. Laura did not enjoy it. And I think that's a testimony. If your children are like, this is the worst day ever, something's not right, because we are supposed to be celebrating our salvation. This is the joy of the Lord. Why are we sitting there forcing our children to, take a nap or not do anything or be super quiet, or you can't have this or you can't have that because it's the Lord's day? I think we have a very skewed view of what Sunday is supposed to be. And so anyway, I have that podcast. I also have a post about this as well that touches on some other aspects of Sundays. But I was very burdened by Sunday, and changing how I saw it and changing it to see it as a celebratory day, and the fact that we have Jesus as our Sabbath rest. We have Jesus as our Sabbath rest every single day. And praise the Lord, we have salvation because Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday. Sunday should be a day of celebration. And so throughout Lent, Sunday is a day of celebration. And this is a reprieve from the things that you have given up. So today is Sunday when I'm filming this, and I drank some coffee, friends. I actually had 2 cups of coffee. I had a cookie. My kids had cookies. We actually made dessert today. It will be the only day that we make any sort of dessert. It's also the only day that they are having any sort of sugary drinks or anything like that. We have completely gotten rid of those things out of the house. And that's to realize just how long 40 days is. Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days, and we kind of flippantly, think about that as no big deal. That was Jesus. But 40 days is a long time. And my kids are realizing that. They are really taking this to heart this year because we are doing this and because I have explained it to them. And I think that's where sometimes the disconnect is between the way that my childhood was and how I'm trying to do things with my kids. In my childhood, we talked about Lent at church, and we talked about giving up things. I don't know that anybody actually did, but nobody said really why. And it wasn't taken to the heart of the matter. It was just something you did. And I want my children to understand the heart behind it. I don't want this to be some sort of rule-driven, you have to do this thing. That would be completely counterproductive to what we're trying to do here. I want this to be heartfelt. And so for me, I can tell you, giving up the coffee, I don't have any sort of addiction to it where it's giving me headaches or anything like that. It's more of a comfort with the, the hot drink in my hand. But giving it up has been, a little bit of a hardship, actually. I have wanted to have coffee. My kids not having their afternoon snack, and this is like the 11-year-old and 13-year-old who decided to do this, to not have an afternoon snack. They notice it every single day. And I told them, this is an opportunity for you to think about Jesus being in the wilderness and how he would not have had an afternoon snack. And he would have also been suffering. And we get to share in that just a little bit, just get a little bit of a taste of how awful that would have been and how amazing it is that he did that for us. So there's object lessons in this. And that is something that I have realized through all this studying, is that the object lessons that come from following the church calendar, from living a more liturgical life, are so deep, so meaningful, so rich, that I want to share that with my family. I want to share it with others. I want all of you to understand it, to live it. I'm not going to say that I'm some expert on this by any means, but I do want to share with you what our family is learning. And so we are giving up something for Lent. We are doing the Stories of the Resurrection devotional. We are also going to do a resurrection garden. This is something we've been doing for years and years. So I guess we did kind of do a Lenten project back in the day. I am not going to do the live garden. The house we're currently in does not have great sunlight into the house, and so we're actually going to do an artificial garden. We did it last year. It was really great. I have instructions for that in the blog. That'll be down in the description for you. It has both instructions for the live and the artificial, so you can choose which one you want, but it is a really neat, meaningful project. I also have a post on the blog with Easter devotionals. Many of them are free, and then there's some that are really great to add into your homeschool that are not free. We tend to do a lot of our Easter devotionals during homeschool time as our Bible lesson. It just works well for us. So the ones that we have used in the past and some of the ones that I talk about on the blog are paid products, but there's a lot of free ones too that would be fantastic to use during this time. We have stripped bare a lot of our decor in the house. I've taken down a lot of greenery. I have taken the wreaths off of the front of the house. We will add all of that back on with more of a spring flair to it come Easter. But we are just kind of reminding ourselves of that wilderness and really soaking this time in as we expectantly await for Easter. So that's what our family is doing for Lent 2024. I'd love to hear what your family does if you have any traditions. And I'd love for you to check out my liturgical calendar guide and the Celebrating the Church Year online guide, because I know it would be something super helpful for you and your family to dig into the church year and really live a Christ-centered life. May your Lent be blessed and reflective, and may you see the Lord's grace and blessings in everything that you do during this season.